Karen,
Yes.
I got a confession to make.
Oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Do I want to hear this?
I'm not sure, honestly. I have been whispering sweet nothings to my glass of water.
Is that what you call me?
Well, the problem is, I'm pretty sure it whispered back.
Oh, then it was the water.
Yes, before you call someone to come collect me, let me explain. Okay. Our guest today is a former math professor, vinyl industry disruptor, and full-blown frequency fanatic. And you're wondering what that has to do with me whispering into my water, right?
I was wondering just that.
It happens that he followed a series of mystical breadcrumbs that led him to a magical spring in Idaho.
Ooh.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Well, not the kind of spring.
Yeah, I wouldn't think of a magical spring in Idaho.
In Idaho.
Like Peru or,
right.
The Alps.
Right.
Idaho.
No, this isn't Idaho. But not the kind that that kind of spring that you Instagram yourself next to or anything like that, right? No, this one comes out of the ground at 139 degrees and 80 gallons a minute.
Wow.
Which, come to think about, sounds a lot less like natural wonder, more like a divine espresso machine. No, but get this, the water, it's alive. Ooh. Like it has memory. It responds to emotion, and it may or may not be judging my life choices.
Oh, I have so many questions.
So he's here to tell us that water can be programmed like an iPhone app, but with fewer bugs and way more enlightenment. Now, according to him, actual Nobel Prize nominated scientists.
Wow.
We can use it to manifest, heal, and basically Jedi mind trick our way into a better reality. So if you've ever taken water for granted, prepare to be spiritually hydrated, because once our guest is done with us, you'll never look at a glass of H2O the same way again. You might even start apologizing to it after yelling at your plants.
My name is Will.
And I'm Karen.
And unlike Mulder and Scully,
we both want to believe.
So we've embarked on a journey of discovery.
We've talked to people deeply entrenched in the spiritual and metaphysical world.
We've thrown ourselves into weird and wonderful experiences. I even joined a coven of witches.
And wait, you joined a coven?
Yep, all in the interest of finding something.
Anything.
That will prove that there's something beyond this physical,
three-dimensional world we all live in.
This is the Skeptic Metaphysicians.
Hey there, I'm Will.
And I'm Karen.
Welcome back to another episode of the Skeptic Metaphysicians. This is something different. See, Aquene is a Native American word meaning peace, tranquility, or clarity.
Oh, I thought you meant a queen. I'm like, oh.
A queen.
I thought you were going to compliment me.
Not you, my queen, but a queen. Now, Aquene Springs is shepherding the unique and sacred water that comes naturally to the Earth's surface from a pristine source filled with life-sustaining energy for the betterment of human health and longevity. Does that not sound delightful?
I mean, I'm such a water person.
Oh,
so
yes, then you're in for a heck of a treat, because it also sounds mysterious all get out, doesn't it?
It does.
Our guest today is no stranger to the unseen forces that shape our world, though his path to the metaphysical started in some pretty unexpected places. See, Michael Hobson is a founder of Aquene Springs, and he brings with him a truly unique blend of science, music, and spirituality. I don't want to do any more of this interview. I just want to talk to him about water. So what he discovered along the way might just change the way you think about the glass you're drinking from right now. Please welcome to the Skeptic Metaphysicians, the founder of Aquene Springs, Michael Hobson. Michael, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, my goodness. Will, Karen, I'm just thrilled to be here with you today.
Wow. We are excited because we've never spoken about water.
We haven't, and it's such an integral part of us in every way possible. Why haven't we?
We're like 15,000% water, right? And we haven't talked about it.
I think we've just, because we think about it just scientifically, like you need water to drink, and the earth is made of water, and it rains, and all of that. But we don't think about
all true
the other properties that I guess we're going to learn about today.
Right. Okay, Michael. Mm-hmm. This water that you were so generous to send us some samples of is alive? What do you mean by that?
Well, just think about it this way. And a lot of your listeners probably are aware of this, but by volume, human beings are about 70% water.
Oh, I was close. I said 15,000, but I was close.
Right? So, but even more interestingly, molecularly, so if you count the molecules in our bodies, about 99.99% water. And so we could really say that we are right now water speaking to water. And I think it's becoming more widely understood that water is really the source of life. And in fact, in 1937, a scientist called Albert St. Georgi won the Nobel Prize and for the discovery of vitamin C. And he had a saying that life is water dancing to the tune of solutes. And I like to say that he had that, I think, partly right. I've changed it slightly. And so the way I think of it is life is water dancing to the tune of God.
Ooh.
I love that.
So one little word makes such a difference.
Such a difference.
Well, it does.
Not that solutes aren't important.
Not solutes are important, it turns out. But, the question is, what are solutes and where do they come from? And we can probably start to talk a little bit about this. I think where we're going to end up is in an understanding in the not so distant future that everything comes from water and everything goes back to water. And so when we talk about how important it is, I think it's really at the very foundation of what we call three-dimensional life here on Earth. So, and I'll just extend this a little bit, and then we'll go wherever you want to go.
Sure,
but,
sure.
My position is, and I think some of the people that you've interviewed have a similar kind of attitude, that here, what's speaking to you right now is a vessel. I can refer to it as a vessel. Some people refer to it as the body. And the question becomes, am I in this body? Or is the body just a vessel through which I come, through which I flow? And I think it's the latter. And I think we're understanding that our consciousness doesn't live in the brain. It doesn't live in our body, albeit our body has sentience, and that sentience is based in water. So when you think of water as having some level of sentience, then it makes some sense how, as you suggested earlier, that you can speak to it and affect change both in the water, and then by you taking it into your body, adding to the water that you have, you can change your structure.
Right.
Yourself.
And we've heard of those experiments that that famous doctor did with the water droplets when he spoke very nicely to it, and the water droplets was beautiful, and yet when he spoke very crossly to it, it was less so. So it makes sense, but it's hard to wrap your head around it sometimes.
And it's incredible how much we take it for granted. But if you think about it, it is such a part of who we are. I mean, we're born in a sack in water in the mothers. A lot of people have the water births because it's a natural progression and it's supposedly less painful, and we drink it. And when you want to have fun, you want to go to the pool or to the water park, or when you've had a stressful day, you want to take a hot bath in water. So there's something so healing, and it's just such a part of us, a part of our bodies anyway. It's part of the vessel.
Right.
I think it's like coming home.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we're going to talk about the properties of the water and the silica and the spring and the whole deal. However, everyone that knows me, especially this one sitting next to me, knows there's something very strange about me. More than one thing, but one thing in particular that's pertinent to this conversation. I have a very difficult time drinking water. Like I feel.
Oh my God, that.
Yes.
Yes.
No, I feel, honestly, I feel sometimes like if I'm drinking it, like I'm drowning. Like I can't, like it's difficult for me to drink water.
Okay.
I know how vital it is. I suffer from migraines. I get dehydrated. So I know how important it is. And yet I can't get myself to drink water. Maybe because it's regular tap water, right? What sets this water apart from the water that I would get from my tap?
Right. So, very good question. And there's the way to think about it's this, and that is water hears everything and it absorbs everything that it comes into contact with, right? And I'm going to say something that most people will not understand, and I just mean it that they've never heard it before, and science doesn't really recognize this, but water has an incredible ability when moving to create a magnetic field. And so when you think about water in that way, moving water becomes like a liquid magnetic tape. And we can talk about Jacques Benveniste and some of the experiments that he did, a renowned immunologist and so forth. And there's a lot of evidence. He kind of coined the term, the memory of water. And so let's imagine water that comes out of a pristine spring in the middle of nowhere, and it just flows out naturally. It's not pumped out and so forth. So that water's come through the Earth's crust, and it's come into contact with a lot of different things, including silica, right? And just as a point of reference, people can look this up. But the second most prevalent element in the Earth's crust is silica. Number one is oxygen, and number three is aluminum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's some interesting things to talk about there with regard to silica and aluminum, which we can get into. But so back to the whole idea that water listens and it takes on, and we'll come back to this in terms of how our thoughts affect our bodies as well. This is the basis for that. And so this pristine water comes out of the ground. You could think of it as unadulterated purity at a level we hadn't really thought about before, which is it doesn't hold a lot of memory outside of the passage that it's come to the surface with. So I won't say it's a completely blank slate, but it's not encumbered by a number of other things that municipal water, for example, has come into contact with. So you could imagine then that drinking, crystal source water or silica source water has a different impact when you drink it because it's got a different pattern of information in it.
So how does it affect us? Like, how does drinking municipal water affect us? Why is it so important not to drink that water? Or is it?
So again, imagine what goes on with municipal water. And this falls into the category of not being judgmental, but being empathetic and compassionate with regard to municipal water. I mean, it will keep us alive, but it won't have us thrive. And part of that, I think, is what we're talking about, where it's been exposed to a bunch of chemicals. It's been in all sorts of pipes of different varieties and so forth. And remember what I said. It's already had, it's often been recycled. Sometimes it's out of rivers or streams or whatever. But anything it comes into contact with. So people talk about, there are different toxic substances that water comes into, but we filter that out. Well, you don't filter out the pattern, the vibratory pattern of the toxin. Okay. And that's the basis for something we can talk about a little bit about as well, which is homeopathy, which involves water and shaking of water to be able to impart the vibratory pattern of whatever water comes into contact with into the water, and it remembers that. So imagine it coming into contact with all sorts of pharmaceuticals or toxins and so forth, and you filter those out according to the way we test water, but you don't get out the pattern. And so when you drink municipal water, the pattern's still there, and that may account for one of the reasons why water from the tap just doesn't appeal to us. And so as a result, you don't drink it.
So how does this pattern affect you? Because you would think if you're pulling out the chemicals, it would be safe. What is the pattern? What does that do?
Okay, so again, let's pull back a little bit and think about our senses, right? All of our senses, all 5 of our senses are, and if you count thought as the 6th sense, then there's 6, are vibratory in nature. And in fact, everything around us is vibrating. And it brings into the idea that everything has a resonant frequency, right? That like with a tuning fork, you can hit a tuning fork and you can break a glass, or you can sing a note and break a glass. And so it's really, that's what the vibratory pattern is. And so everything is radiating. In fact, that when we walk into a room and all the things in the room are radiating, some are radiating with sight, like we can see different colors and so forth. That's the basis for when we look at art. Sometimes we're like in awe because that vibratory pattern is having an impact on us, right? Mm-hmm. The same with taste, touch, smell, hearing, the whole thing, right? So you can imagine then if water has this ability to hold that pattern, that vibratory pattern, then it's still there, even though you've taken the molecule out, what we call the molecule, the material. So this is a little bit of a discussion about the visible or material, which is the world of science, and the invisible, which and vibratory patterns, which is the space of
the woo.
Spiritual.
Right.
And it makes perfect sense. I never thought about it with water, but you know how, everybody has that friend that's always like, and you get with them and instantly you're like, too, because of that vibration.
Is that me? You're talking, I feel like you're talking about me.
No, well, so if you can just, by being in someone's presence, now you're putting something into your body that has its own vibration. I can see absolutely that would affect you.
So yeah, Karen, just to add to what you're saying, I think you're absolutely right.
Yay.
In fact, when someone walks into the room, you can tell immediately if they're in stress or distress, or whether they're bringing something into the room. It's like, what just happened? Who walked into the room? Right. So that's the basis on which we operate in this sensed environment, which we call 3D Earth.
Right. And I read somewhere, or I heard somewhere, or somewhere along the lines, I came across the knowledge that someone somewhere, very scientific, I know.
You're so precise.
Said that when water goes through the pipes,
yes,
all the bends and things like break it, right? So you're drinking water that's molecularly not exactly what you expect it to be. So something like Aquene Springs that comes directly from a spring doesn't go through all those calisthenics, so therefore it's more intact. Is that fair to say?
I think there is something to that. In fact, when water goes through pipes, it matters what kind of pipes it goes through. Because again, everything matters, right? And so yes, in fact, that's true.
Right.
I don't know if I would say that it's broken. I'm not sure about that. But I would say that it changes it depending on the number of bends and twists. In fact, if one goes and takes a look at some of the work of a guy called Victor Schauberger, right? Victor was a naturalist who lived mainly in Austria from the late 1800s, actually the middle 1800s to 1958 when he died. And there are many books written about some of the things that he observed with regard to water being turned. And he talked about the process of turning water in a spiral, in a vortex type pattern as a way of vitalizing it. And the way he came up with that was he observed nature. And in fact, his comment, and I know his grandson, who still lives in Austria, was observe nature and copy it, right? And so what do we find in streams in the wilderness or in nature? That water's moving, it's going over rocks, it's turning, and so forth. And that is the process by which, for example, spring water becomes vitalized. And that's one of the reasons why, it's tastes good and is good for us.
Right.
It's like happy water.
It is happy water.
Because it's like, it's going through the stream, or even I would think, we're talking about the vibrations affecting it and the people, going through the pipes, even the people that are laying the pipes, if you got the little seven dwarfs and they're hi ho and they're all happy and they're,
Absolutely.
compared to like some guys like, oh, this sucks. And he's like banging the pipe in there. I would think it would get that energy as well.
Yep. No.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Karen, you're absolutely right.
Please don't do that. Please don't do that. It goes too. It happens too often. It's not fair. So just.
Well, she's just got a natural feel for what happens in the real world, and now we can extend this to our thoughts. Mm-hmm. Thoughts are, I think, at the basis of our health and well-being, and it is in the context. And of course, a lot of people agree with that, right? Including Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so no mystery here. Hobson's not telling you anything you haven't heard before. But nobody's really thought about what's the mechanism. Mm. The mechanism's water.
Is it really?
Right? It is.
How so? Yeah. How does the water help us to think, I guess?
It doesn't help us think. It probably does. If you're dehydrated, you get a little fuzzy. Right. And the issue there, by the way, is that water is crucial on a lot of levels inside the body, one of which is for electrical transmission. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say something again that most people aren't aware of, but is becoming more and more well known. And I'll just show you all a book. We Are Electric.
Boogie, woogie, woogie. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So if people want to look at that, I'm not endorsing it, but it's a really good book. And it talks about the fact that human beings are electric. Now, we know that neurons and so forth use electricity to communicate with each other. But it turns out that water, in the presence of a surface, okay, be it DNA, be it proteins, be it skin, changes its composition. In fact, it turns into something called a liquid crystal. And that liquid crystal is conductive. And so when we dehydrate, then the ability for our cells to communicate with each other is greatly diminished. And think about this, that one of the processes of aging is that of dehydration. In fact, when we're babies, we're about 85 to 90% water. When we get to an elderly state, we're about 60 to 65%. So is it any surprise that maybe we don't think and communicate and are as aware as we were earlier in life? Right. So water's really important in that process of communication inside the body.
And when you look at the condition of your skin as you get older, it gets wrinkled and dried and whatever. It reminds me of like those old movies where like they suck all the water out of someone and they like
a raisin
into nothing. Yeah,
you get this nice
right?
liquidy grape.
Well, in fact, exactly what you're saying. You can think of babies as grapes, and you can think of old people as grapes.
I think you're a prune, Will.
I was just going to say better than prunes. Dang it. Okay.
So let's talk about the silica, because when we got the bottle, and thank you so much for sending that to us, we held it up to the light, flipped it upside down, held it up to the light, and saw all of these little sparkles, which I don't know, you probably can't see my nails, but they're very glittery because I'm all about the sparkles. So it's beautiful. Yeah. So how is it good for you?
Yeah. So what they've discovered is that, let's go back.
Unless you can see that. So
you could at the bottom. It's really clear at the bottom. See that?
Oh
yeah,
yes.
I can see it.
Yeah.
Dancing. Yeah. And they dance in sort of a helical fashion as well. So
for those that are only listening to the show, you should definitely watch the video because he sent us a bottle of the water, and the instructions were very clear. It said you're supposed to shake it up and put it up against the light, and you'll see the dancing silica. And then sure enough, it's filled. It reminds me of when you were young, you ate that like Goldschlager, the flakes of gold.
I was thinking kid age, but older, young.
But way better. Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah. So it turns out, as I mentioned before, that the second most common element in the Earth's crust is silica, followed by aluminum, right? And so it in plants, So aluminum's toxic to plants, animals, and humans.
Right.
And plants, because they're in the soil, they naturally absorb some aluminum, but they're also in dirt, which is silica rich. And so the silica encases or encapsulates the aluminum in plants. And so it renders it harmless to the plants. Otherwise, the plants would become inflamed. They'd have inflammation, and like we do,
Huh.
and when we have too much aluminum in us, because remember, the latest research suggests that aluminum toxicity is not maybe entirely responsible, but at least partly responsible for dementia.
I was just going to go there.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, we switched to aluminum-free deodorant,
Yeah.
you know, because it just gets absorbed into your system, and
Yep,
all that freaks me out.
Exactly. And we live in what is referred to as the aluminum age.
Oh,
It's
yay!
It's in everything, right?
Right.
And moreover, the pattern of the same.
Right. So we're going to die either with aluminum or microplastics. One or the other. We got them all. So
Either that or we'll be indestructible. We'll be plastic metal robots. So then drinking this is healthful.
Yes. So plants, I just took you through what happens with plants to protect themselves. In animals and human beings, what happens is the same process, that if there's aluminum in our body and we have silica in our diet, right? And what's silica rich in? Plants, vegetables, fruit, sort of the things that we already know are good for us. So maybe no surprise that, we should be eating, what is it, 5 portions of fruits and vegetables a day, right? At least in part for the silica content. So what happens is the same thing, that it encases the aluminum, and then we either sweat or urinate it out. Another reason why exercise and going to the sauna, for example, may be beneficial for us to be able to detoxify ourselves from aluminum. Right. So it all starts to sort of make sense how these different things that we know are good for us may have a relationship with detoxing from aluminum toxicity, which then hopefully will lead to us not getting dementia, or at least putting that off. So the bioavailability of silica is greatest in water. And therein lies the issue. If you drink silica-rich water, then you're adding to your ability to detoxify from aluminum.
Wow.
Sadly, if one looks at most commercially available water, right, and I don't really need to say the names, but they're made by some of the big companies like Pepsi and Coca-Cola and Nestle. And you look at what they do is they do what's called reverse osmosis and or purified water. And what that does is takes out all of the minerals, including silica.
Interesting. Wow.
Just saying.
Now, can you get? I'm sorry. Can you get too much silica? Is that anything that you have to worry about?
As far as we know, ingesting what's called digestible silica there's no harmful effects. There is something called silicosis, but that has to do with. So another thing to remember: what is silica the basis of? Is there a reason why they call Silicon Valley, and call those silicon wafers and microchips? It's because they're made from silica, from the actual element silicon. And so in that case, if you were to breathe silica dust, right, from the mine or that sort of thing, you could develop silicosis, which is an ailment of the lungs, right?
Oh.
Your ability to breathe, and you suffocate and die. So that's not
Not good. Yeah. So basically, you're saying don't drink in this water. I mean, don't swim in this water.
Well, I don't think that's the case. But again, now you can also see because human beings are referred to as semiconductors, right? And so the amount of silica in our body increases our ability to semiconduct which involves, electrical signals and so forth. And guess what our thoughts are? They're electrical currents. We know that, right? We measure them all the time with EEG. And so our thoughts are electrical in nature. And so you can imagine that if we have a negative thought, which is a pattern, electrical pattern, like a tune, think of it as a song. And then that gets radiated into our body. What could happen?
Right.
Like something called dis-ease?
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Right. So do we make ourselves sick? Yeah, I think so.
I think so too.
So if we talked about the fact that water has memory, and this water specifically can be programmed, or maybe all water can be programmed.
I agree.
Do you recommend that when you pour yourself a glass of water,
Yeah.
you pour your intentions, you think your intentions into the glass before you drink it?
Yes. So there's a couple different methods. One not no better than the rest. And this really comes down to, like everything else in life, it comes down to knowing, right? And it's the activity of faith, which is the ability to know that which is invisible and unseen, right? And so if people have talked about manifestation, if you know that something's going and intend that and you know it, very often it happens. So that old saying, be careful what you wish for.
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
And so here we're in a situation where thought is, I think, at the top of the food chain in terms of how, we regulate or moderate ourselves. And so thought in and of itself, so people who meditate and there are healers that can operate at a distance just by thought, right? And those are people that are very sophisticated and I think can quiet all of what we call the noise, right, inside of ourselves, and to be able to then transfer that intention. And that's another topic we could talk about, but we're talking about water here. And so what are our words? Our words are a vibratory equivalent of our thoughts. So now you can say to yourself, okay, now maybe if I want to heal myself, or I want to change something, or I want to put an intention, I think it. And then the way I do it is, and other people have different ways, I then take that thought and push it to my heart. Now remember something about the heart. It's well known that it is the generator of the highest magnetic field in the human body, right? And also that comes out of the hands, specifically the left hand. But in a circuit situation, if you're holding a glass of water and you push that thought into your heart, and some people like Marcel Vogel, and if people want to go on YouTube and look up Marcel Vogel, they'll see him program water. They'll see him use a quartz crystal that's cut in a specific way. And then he pulses his breath. So that's another way to do it. And so you speak that intention, right, into the water. And I pulse my breath. And then I drink my own thoughts.
Wow.
Drink my own thoughts. When did you think you'd ever hear that
Never.
statement on the show?
But it is so cool.
So cool, right?
Wow.
So then I just speak, I think about what I want, I say into this, I want to be rich, and then I drink it. And that's how you manifest.
That you could manifest, absolutely. Yep.
Because you say, and I've read you say that that water can be used as a tool for manifestation and for spiritual growth, right? So I assume this is a good way to do it, is to speak your intention into the water before you imbibe it, which then raises your vibrational rate and brings
Absolutely.
up.
And it has such an impact on our minds too, because when you're stressed and then you go and look at the ocean or just see a picture of the water, it's it just does something that kind of, I don't know. That's the technical. That's what it's called.
a lot like a vacuum.
So,
Yeah.
how long have you been working or been producing this water, or not producing, but
Yeah, so we came out at the best of all possible times, as Voltaire would say, during
I was
COVID.
gonna say COVID.
Right.
So yeah, it's been it's been an interesting journey. We'll put it that way.
Mhm.
And as I said before, it's clear to me that I'm being guided, and that so I don't really take credit for any of this stuff because I don't think it comes from me. I think it comes through me.
Mhm.
And if you think um, like I do, that we come here with a mission, and that part of our job is to figure out what the mission is, and then we get to accept it, right? Like Mission Impossible. And sometimes it is Mission Impossible,
And
right?
sometimes we self-destruct.
Right. And so, in that context, yeah, we get to choose
Mhm.
and what we're doing here, and apparently I'm supposed to bring this water, and I'm also working on some other interesting things that I think will be beneficial for human beings and will allow us to take control and responsibility for our own health and well-being instead of abdicating that to others. And I'm not trying to be critical of the medical establishment because they've got a job to do too. But I think,
But they should do it better.
yeah, I think we can
Yeah.
Yes.
as individuals. And so one of the reasons why people ask, like, so why the silica crystals? Why are they crystallized? So they've been programmed. The water's been programmed for the silica, which you can't normally see when it's in solution, to solidify and to coalesce into these beautiful crystals. And part of that is so that you can suspend the disbelief that talking to water can be effective. Because what is silica? It's a basis for quartz, right?
Mhm.
And we know about quartz crystal. Quartz crystals are used in radios because they can hold information.
Right.
In fact, IBM in the early 70s put an image of the Mona Lisa into a quartz crystal and then retrieved it. So it is a storage mechanism. And this guy, Marcel Vogel, that I referred to earlier, was an IBM scientist and was involved in, storage devices and materials and so forth, and then switched over to crystals and recognized that quartz crystals and water have the same resonant frequency.
Right.
So you can take a quartz crystal, put intention into that, and then put it into water.
Wow.
Okay.
So part of the reason I asked that last question was because I want to know, what have you noticed about yourself, or what changes or what benefits have you personally had from drinking this water?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that has happened to me is that doing, what Will just did, a minute ago with regard to, I don't really wish for wealth and fame and all of that sort of thing.
You don't know what you're missing, Michael. You don't know what you're missing.
And maybe you're right. I don't, but I sort of gave up on that approach. And instead, my approach has been to find myself in a situation where I don't live in judgment, and that I live in a situation of compassion, empathy, generosity, love, obviously at the very top. And so one of the things that I do every day, and sometimes with or without the water, is, I have a little mantra, and it's that I am that I am. I love my Creator, who's the light and the love in me. I am He, He is me, we are thee. Let me be filled with love for everything and everyone in this universe. And I say that to the water, and then I drink that. And so, to answer your question, it's changed the way that I am in the world.
I'm so glad this is being recorded, because I'm going to use that same mantra. I'm going to go and break down and what did he say? Did he say what? The before the stuff?
Yeah, please.
That's beautiful.
It was
really
absolutely
is.
beautiful. Yeah.
So that's the biggest change in me. And I'll just tell you, I'm at the point now where if I have a pain somewhere in my body, I'm able to, even without the water, but with the water, to be able to speak to it and have the pain stop almost immediately.
What?
Wow.
Yep. Yeah. There's nothing special about me. So what I mean by that is everybody has that same opportunity. If we know that we have that ability,
Right.
so we have superpowers. I think some of those superpowers are being discovered now. I don't know if you all, and I'm not plugging it, but I'm a big follower of the telepathy tapes.
Oh, I talk about it every time I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it turns out that I was just recently in the presence of one of the non-speakers,
Oh, wow.
and we were in some water experiments where, as I mentioned before, water, when it comes into contact with a surface, be it the hull of a boat or, proteins in our body, it changes its structure into something that has been coined as the exclusion zone. So the water changes structure around and creates this zone of exclusion where it pushes all solutes out of it, right? And so, they know how to create these exclusion zones, and what they were experimenting with, and they just did it recently in Seattle. My dear friend Gerald Pollack, if you know about him, people, if they don't know about him, should look him up. Got some YouTube videos, very well-known, eminent professor at the University of Washington, was doing some experiments with a non-speaker from the telepathy tapes, and I saw in real time them grow the exclusion zone.
Wow.
Just through telepathic communication with the water.
Wow.
That's intense.
Oh my gosh.
That's pretty awesome.
That is-
Yeah.
All right. So you got me. I'm going to be talking about water from now on,
Please.
regardless. But I want to talk about the spring itself, because you doing research on you and Aquene Springs, I learned that it is kind of like the epitome of the fountain of youth, right? So Ponce de Leon is looking for that forever in Florida. He didn't realize he had to go to Idaho to find it, right? How did you stumble on this magical spring?
It's just the reverse, as always. It stumbled on me.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I can't really claim credit for it. Again, I was guided both to water, and I'll tell you something that is I'm sheepish to admit, but is humbling as well. Before I got involved in all this, even if you roll the tape back 20 years or so, I was not a big water guy. Like, I didn't drink a lot of water, right? And yeah, so in the same vein, like, if I got thirsty, of course, I'd drink some water or whatever. And an interesting little aside is that most people don't realize this, but we actually make water inside of our body, right? So turns out there are 3 different ways to get water to hydrate. One is to drink it. The other is to bathe or swim in it, because remember, our skin is a 2-way pathway. And the third is that through metabolism and something called the electron transfer mechanism, you guys can look this up, that the outcome of that process is 2 things: water and heat. And so that process is how we heat ourselves and maintain the 98.6 or thereabout temperature, which is the ideal temperature for this amazing engine. Tesla called the human body the most perfect engine ever made. So we actually make water inside of our body in the same way that water, and you'll see where I'm going with this, as in the same way that water is made in the Earth's crust. So water, we know, is the combination of 2 elements, hydrogen and oxygen. Remember what I said before about oxygen being the most prevalent element in the Earth's crust. So what else is in the Earth's crust? Things we call hydrocarbons, which most often we pump out and refine and put into our vehicles to move from one place to the other. But those hydrocarbons, particularly in places where there's geothermic activity, heat, what happens? They get dissociated. So the hydrogen and the carbon get dissociated. Hydrogen, being a lonely bachelor, looks for something to pair with. What does it find?
Oxygen.
In the case of heat, it creates steam. That steam percolates through the Earth's crust, coming across things like silica and potassium and salt and so forth. And then some places comes out of the ground at 139 degrees Fahrenheit. So now you can sort of think about one of the other great things about this particular spring, and there are other springs around the world that are really beautiful places and are nourishing water. But in this particular case, it's something called primary water, we think, which is it's water that's not part of the hydrologic cycle. It's not part of the evaporation from oceans or streams, formation of clouds, and then under the right conditions, rain, and that we get most of our surface water from. The earth actually makes water. So it puts a new bent on the term as above, so below.
Right.
Wow.
But so I know that you were called to it, but I could only picture you with like an Indiana Jones hat and like going through the wilds of Idaho
And then a little test.
It's kind of like it's in the high desert in southern Idaho, in the middle of nowhere.
In the desert.
So, yeah, in the desert, the high desert, right,
Wow.
at about 7,000 feet. And so, yeah, the Creator put these special sources of water all around the world. And like I said, there's not one place that has the greatest water. I think there's a lot of water. One thing I should mention, we talked about silica. One of the things about this blue zones, right? That's places where people routinely live in excess of 100 years, right? Centenarians. But often sometimes into the 100 teens, right? So it turns out one of the things that's true about all of those blue zones is that the water that they drink has a high silica content.
Interesting.
Wow, that is interesting.
Yeah.
Another little fun fact.
So
That's a coincidence.
how much of this water are we supposed to drink in a day?
Well, that's an interesting thing. The number one question people ask me when they find out I'm into water, it's like, how much water should I be drinking? And, like I said before, there are other ways to get water. So it's not so this whole idea that I used to drink a gallon a day.
Oh, that's a lot of bathroom breaks.
I was going to say more or less just hovered close to the toilet. Right?
You got your laptop there. Yeah.
Lots of stops on the road, that kind of thing, right? So I would say that generally, and the variation is what kind of climate do you live in, right? If you live in Arizona or places that are really hot, if you're down at the equator, you really do need to replenish water. You're probably going to stress your system not trying to have it produce enough water to sustain you. But I think it varies across people. And so there's not one size fits all with how much water someone should be drinking. I'll tell you what I do. I live in Southern California. I try, not always successful, at drinking about a half gallon. So it's kind of 2 liters, if you will, something like that.
Okay, that's still quite number. Yeah. That's still like at least 4 bathroom trips at the middle
But
of the
it's
night.
your thoughts.
Yeah.
Your thoughts.
That's true. That's
But
true.
it's really at the end of the day, and thank you, Karen, for bringing us back to that. When you talk about the most important thing in sustaining us or to extend our lives or to have us be in a more healthy state, I really do think it starts with our thoughts. That's the most important thing. And so if you can combine those thoughts and even telepathically to the water, because you can operate on that level as well. You just have to know that you can do it. You really don't have to speak, right? It's just when we speak, we know that that's a vibratory pattern. And we think, okay, the silica in the water, it vibrates too, and it vibrates sympathetically with our voice, but it turns out we can do it with our thoughts as well.
Gotcha.
Okay, so I have a question, and it's going to sound like I'm being facetious, and I'm not. This is
Uh-oh.
a real question. So if I get a bottle of this water, and I just, think and telepathy and, put those thoughts and vibrations in there, and then Will gets that bottle of water and pours himself a glass, and then he thinks into that glass,
Right.
has it now switched to his vibrational level, or will it kind of contain all of them?
It would contain all of them.
Ooh.
Yeah. So he'll become you.
Oh, there we go.
What? No, I'm out. Nuh-uh.
You should be so lucky.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
So then it doesn't reprogram the water. It's additive then.
It's additive.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, then
Exactly.
keep your bottle away from grouchy people.
I know. Not about love.
Absolutely. So I think with this understanding, we really can understand how the mechanism of being in the presence of great people. I like to say that I've been blessed over time to have known great people my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you book passage with pirates, the old saying goes, minimally you'll be robbed.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about who you keep company with. It's about your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then also, I love that we got it in a glass bottle.
Yeah.
Do you recommend drinking out of glass, or how do you feel about plastic glasses? Or they're not
look,
plastic cups.
with the knowledge that you have now
Mm-hmm.
with regard to vibratory patterns, anything the water comes in contact with, it's going to, entrain
We just
that.
it's like
So
pour it into our mouths.
If it goes into a plastic container, it's going to have, and I'm not saying that that's detrimental or it's going to do harm to you or whatever, but it's going to have that pattern.
Good Lord. I hadn't even thought about that.
Everything. In fact, you can take a note, a sticky note, and you can write, I love you on it. And you can sit that down and you could put the water on it and it will affect the water.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Even words, because that's a pattern.
I've been drinking water all wrong.
See, maybe you'll
And
like it
it
better
knows.
now.
Well,
This is delicious, though, by the way.
I was going to say
It's
this
so-
water.
I drank mine already.
This water is easier to drink because it's got like a fresh sweetness taste to it. I don't know. It's hard to explain really, but it's way better than the water that we try to.
And it's sparkly. No, it is. It's very good.
Well, to that point, you did send us a bottle in glass, which is nice. But then we also got something that's in a packet, right, in a box.
A bag and box.
Yes.
Exactly. Uh-huh.
So that is where this water is from, and the silica is not as obvious in this one as it is in the glass bottle. Is that by design?
No, not. I mean, yes and no. Okay. So here's the real skinny on that. The water that goes into the bottles has, let's call it another process, even though nothing's added to it. It's the process is a programming that says to the silica, I want you to coalesce into these crystals that people can see.
Got it.
Now, it turns out that the water in the box will also try to do that. And so you can see in the boxed water some little amorphous. They're not as pretty and so forth.
Right.
And so, to be honest with you, when I drink the water, I don't always drink out of the glass. In fact, most of the time, I have a box sitting on my counter. I like water at room temperature, but some people like it cold. And I just use that because I know that the water, regardless of whether I can see the silica crystals or not, it can hear me.
Wow.
And it's listening. So just that knowing means that, I can do that.
Well, there's another reason why maybe you might want to keep it in the fridge, because if you're keeping it out on the counter and there's all kinds of chaos around, ambulances driving by, there's people fighting or arguing, or whatever, then it might.
Yes.
You're talking from experience, huh?
Everything matters. Everything matters. Now, here's an interesting thing. It turns out that because the water is conducive to our intention, that's what it's here for, by the way, is to serve. And so you can take water, as you can imagine, and you can say to it, it is my intention to clear you of all of the distressing things that you've been in contact with and render those not harmful at all. And you can then program it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like a little take back.
Yeah. A little clearing, if you
Yeah.
will.
Wow.
Yeah, you
Okay.
can do that. Absolutely.
That's good to know. I'm going to be like a talking to water fool now. You know, every time I pour myself a glass of water, I'm like, Will, stop. Okay,
We're gonna have to explain this to Sienna.
Yeah, that's true.
Our daughter. She's like, what are you guys
Yeah.
doing? We gotta let her know.
Kids get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
They get it. My kids have been drinking it for years. And so, for example, one of the kids will get some kind of a sickness, illness, head cold or whatever. And I just say simply, talk to the water. And they go, okay, I got it. They do it.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Well, this has been fascinating, and I know that there's so much more about it that we haven't talked about. But if someone wanted to try the water for themselves,
Right.
what's the best way for someone to do that?
Yeah. So right now we only sell it direct to consumer from the website, www. Excuse me, Aquene Springs, AQUENE Springs.com. And in fact, I think we've set up a special code for you all.
You have,
Uh, Out if you want to try, some of the water at checkout. There'll be a box for a promo code, and if you put in skeptic, you'll get 10% off your first order.
There you go. You heard it here first. You go to that. We're going to add that link directly in our show notes. All you need to do is go to our skepticmetaphysician.com, go to our episode. You'll see his episode, and in there, in the show notes, will be a link directly in. And don't forget to use the code skeptic to get 10% off.
And definitely get some, because it's good for you, but it just feels like you feel like you're drinking this really special water. There's something, and it is special.
It is special.
Makes you feel it. So I would recommend you got to try at least a bottle.
I would definitely recommend it too. And I'm not a water drinker, and I'm really enjoying drinking this water. So you got to at least taste it. Try it. It's pretty amazing. So thank you very much for setting that up for our audience. That's very, very kind of you. It's been a pleasure meeting you. And I know that you're moving to Virginia in the near future, so hopefully we'll be neighbors, and we can raise a glass together at some point in person.
Absolutely. And let me just leave you with the thought that there are some other very interesting things coming that I've been working on, and I'm not at liberty to disclose those right now. But when that comes around, which is probably in the next year, I'll let you guys know, and maybe we can revisit this.
Sounds like
Great.
a plan. Absolutely. Michael, pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much for being on the show. It was a pleasure meeting you.